All right, welcome back to class 8. This is video 3. We're going to start off with a summary of what the vector loop equations are and the solution to them for a 4-bar. Here's the vector loop. As mentioned, we remember that we're going around and we went positive through the R2, positive through the R3, and then went backwards, so negative for the R4 and backwards through the R1 for the ground. So there's why they had negatives. We could break these down into, oh, interesting here. I didn't even see that before. We could break these down. Somehow that got over there, and you belong equals 0. Okay. So that's nobody pointed that out. Appreciate that. I know that I made a lot of mistakes, so there you go. I think what I did is I rearranged these to match the vector loop in order to be consistent between slides. I try to do that, but cause myself some trouble sometimes when trying to be consistent, and then I make mistakes. So anyway, so often theta 1 is equal to 0, so we can usually just eliminate that. These are knowns, so here are the knowns, and we're usually given at theta 2 that sets where the crank is going to be. So what we really need to find is theta 3 and theta 4. We find out that that's difficult to do. Two equations, two unknowns should be easy, right? But it turns out to be not be. So here are this is what the things you would need to know, or just the equations you need to solve this. You need these 5 different K's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then A, B, C, D, E, and F applied to these 2 equations. And you can see that there are 2 different versions of them. So they have a subscript of a subscript, theta 4, 1, and 2, because you have a plus and minus. So you have different versions. And those correspond to the open and crossed versions of the circuits. They don't necessarily is 1 the open and 2 the crossed. It could be the other way around. And I've noticed a trend that happens a lot. But then you can also get theta 3 right here. So we're going to see where this comes from in a moment. And we'll come down to so mentioning some helpful trigonometry along the way would be a good idea. And that's this half angle identities. Dr. Robert Williams walks through a derivation of the half angle identities. If you would like to have some more insight into them, they use these identities over here, I believe, in order to make your way to getting them, right? For the half angle, you like split them in half and that kind of thing. Anyway, we're going to use it for this, and this is in section 4.5. The book does this, and I'm not reading to you. I'm trying to give you some insight and make it easier for you to digest this, right? So these are the things we just previously said in our summary. I just mentioned local coordinates all start at the tail end of the vectors. And we're assuming theta 1 is equal to 0. So we have these 2 equations. Simplified them from up above, and we can try to get rid of one of the 2 unknowns. And so we'll isolate theta 3. That's the one we're going to say, well, let's get rid of theta 3 so we can find theta 4. So we arrange them by moving them over onto the left-hand side of the equal sign. And now we're going to square both of these sets. So square this whole thing, square this whole thing, and then add them together. And when you do that, you got yourself a sine squared theta 3 plus cosine squared theta 3. That's a nice thing to have, because that ends up equaling 1. And you'll note that there aren't any other theta 3. So we've eliminated theta 3 already. Yay. So now all we need to do is find theta 4. If it was only that easy, because it's stuck inside a cosine and a sine, it's still not very easy to solid form. So we'll arrange them, expand and collect. There were some squared terms inside of brackets, so we stretch them out, and then we've collected common things. We divide by 2AC, and we rearrange. And I think now is about the right time to start getting rid of some variables, like here, just to clean up. So we define K1, K2, and K3 just to neaten this up. And when substituting back in there, we're actually getting pretty close to an equation that's well known called the Freudenstein's equation, shown right here. This was in a 1955 paper. I think I have it. I'm going to try to share it on Canvas so that you can take a look at where this comes from. So we're right here at a stage where this is sort of like a famous equation that ended up getting solved. You can even Google it. You can probably find it. So we're going to use these half-angle identities to replace the sine and the cosine that was kind of in our way, the ones of the cosine of theta 4 and the sine of theta 4. So we put those in place and distribute out the denominator throughout there, and also distribute out the K1 up into the ones and so forth to this one over here. We can move them around, so we have this tangent squared of theta 4 over 2 and a tangent theta 4 over 2 and then some constant. And that kind of idea, we have a square without the square and then some constant. We have a quadratic if we could just get to it, and here we are. Let's organize a little bit more by cleaning up and defining A, B, and C as these equations. And what we're left with is a quadratic equation right here. A times tangent squared theta 4 over 2 plus B times tangent theta 4 over 2 plus C. And we could just find the quadratic equation and take the inverse tan, or 2 times the inverse tangent of it. And now we have theta 4. And we have 2 different versions because there's a plus or minus right here. Now all we need is theta 3. Well, you would think that we could just go back and just plug the theta 4 into what we didn't know, but oh no. We have to do this whole thing over again. So here we go. Here's the 2 equations. We got to make sure that we notice there's a space right here. So these are 2 separate equations, but I've rewritten them so theta 4 is now on the left-hand side instead previously theta 3 was. So we square these again. And we, with the purpose and add them, we square and add in order to eliminate this right here. And you'll note, if we get rid of these terms, no theta 4 anywhere. Good news. So divide by 2a. That gets us sort of this arrangement so that we can clean it up by defining some more k's. We're fortunate enough that k1 takes care of, I think, this term right here. So we can recycle K1, but we need K4 and then the K5, and we're getting close to Freudenstein's equation. Boom. And then we do the half angle identity. I didn't bother showing that. And with that, we can define D, E, and F to be these values, and now we got to have ourselves a quadratic again. Boom. We can solve for theta 3, 1, and 2. Good news, we don't have to put in theta 4 into this to be able to find it. So we don't have the same problem we do in the slider crank, where we have some more combinations than we would like. Right, so let's take a look at an example of this. These are example 4.1 that's in the text. The ground is 100, the crank is 40, the coupler is 120, and the rocker is 80. And we want to find theta 3 and theta 4 when theta 2 is at 40 degrees. And we want to find both the open and crossed versions. So they're showing a preview of what this thing looks like up here. So not exciting. We could put in the K1, we could plug in numbers to the K1, K2, K3, K4, K5. And then when we have those, we plug them into the A, B, C, D, E, and F. Of course, all those are just numbers that get put into this theta 4, 1, and 2. And I left the plus and minus there, so I just showed you the two different angles that you get out of the thing. We have to make a decision at some point whether which one is associated with the crossed and which one isn't. But right away, you could probably tell that the positive one is the value is probably the open, whereas this is going to be negative is going to be clockwise, so it's going to be down there in the probably in the fourth quadrant. All right, so theta 3, 1, 2 is also valuable here, and it appears that this is negative. So again, that's probably the crossed one, and this is probably the open one. But we would like to confirm that, and with a little SolidWorks drawing sketch, we could. But we could also, by the way, we could also find all the unknowns from this. But this is just using the graphical analysis to be able to check the analytical analysis. But we get the same values, like 20.3 here, and the 60.98, and the 57, then the negative 98 right there. So everybody came out right. Here is an Excel version of it. I've made a spreadsheet for you that you can use, and I've included it on Canvas. So you can see the values. I'm not quite sure. I got to double check. No pun intended. What these lines were for. So I know I'm pretty sure I understand what the checks were for in the slider crank, but this one I'm not quite sure with. But it does seem to coincide with the solution that we got up above here. So maybe it was a worthwhile thing to have done. Down here is where I show what each of those cells, what the equations were in each of those cells, if you were perhaps interested in recreating this. But I give it to you, so you don't necessarily need to recreate it. All right, so I also have a, let's see, do I have, okay, so by the way, here is the, what I was referring to, the Excel that I gave you for the 4 bars. And you can see this little diagram down below helps you kind of get an idea of what the thing is going to look like, because I have the increment set, the scale set. So these are kind of squares. So it should be fairly proportional to any problem that you did. And then I also have this MATLAB setup where it has not only the variables, but I'm outputting the angles, because SolidWorks, MATLAB deals with radians, so I turned it into answers that will be pleasant for you. I also made used quivers to draw them out. So let's see what that looks like. Boom. Ooh, that doesn't look like it works either. Huh, that's weird. Oh, you know what I think it is that it's overwriting. Yeah. Boom. There you go. Oh, good. So this is what it looks like, and I also got it, I think, proportional, so that they're 20 by 20 little grids here. So this should be to scale with your solution. Yeah, so I think that's a helpful tool, and we can adapt that as needed. And I think we are done with this recording, and it went faster than I thought. We'll move along to the last one.